is the motor functions of the body, a kind of censorship is carried out between the consciousness and the subconscious, which means that the cerebellum only allows particular, uncensored, information through, from the subconscious into the consciousness, whereby an overtaxing of this and the brain is generally prevented. Thereby, on one hand, the human being's arbitrary actions are restricted because the cerebellum's censor hinders this when it processes information from the subconscious and transfers it to the consciousness. On the other hand, the process by which the human can benefit from his intuition, and therefore can act intuitively, is thereby guaranteed. If the Feinstoffsinnlichkeit emerges as a result of incisive events, then that does not happen in a process and way which can be called normal, because a neuronal switching occurs, which is brought about, artificially, for example, as a result of a serious accident or grave illness or the effects of shock, and so forth. In regard to the simple reading of thoughts, it must be understood that this still has nothing to do with pure primary, or secondary, that is to say, higher telepathy, or indeed with spiritual telepathy, whereby the latter is only possible with a high evolution of the consciousness. As a result of the atrophying of the perception ability in regard to Feinstoffsinnlichkeit, even the simple reading of thoughts is no longer a given for the earth human being, rather it is still only an exception to the rule, and consequently only few can read or perceive the thoughts of others in simple and primary form. Thereby, with the simple reading of thoughts, the feelings which are bound with the thoughts completely escape attention, that is to say, they are not perceived at all because the capacity for Feinstoffsinnlich empathy is also required in order to be able to also perceive these. But the fact is that, once the capacity for simple thought reading has come about, then the human being can pick up or perceive over great distances the information which is directed to him pertaining to thoughts. But since not all humans are capable of Feinstoffsinnlich perception, not everybody can feel it if, for example, a human being dies, is in danger, or if they themselves venture into danger. In fact, however, it is the nature of the human brain to send out thoughts and to receive thoughts, and so, therefore, to have the capability, if it is developed, of reading thoughts. The same applies in the case of primary telepathy and pure, secondary telepathy. However, the fact that not all human beings have an equal ability to read thoughts precluded thereby the telepathy forms because the human of the earth is not yet capable of this pure ability is because the brain works against this capability as a result of the pronounced rational intellect. However, self-protection is also built into this rational intellectual position, as was already explained in another way. Were it not for this self-protection which prevents the uncontrolled penetration of foreign spiritual fine sensitive feeling, thought vibrations and feeling vibrations, and which can be steered and opened, as desired, with sufficient mastering of the Feinstoffsinnlich realm, and thereby also with the mastering of the reading of thoughts, then the brain would be uninterruptedly exposed to a monstrous flood of foreign stimulations pertaining to spiritual fine sensitive feeling, to thoughts, and to feelings, with which one could not cope and which would inevitably lead to insanity. However, in order to prevent that, because the earth human being has indeed turned to purely rational understanding, the brain has learnt, during the course of evolution, to organize and make a choice about everything. Basically, what there is to say about that is that the entirety of the whole thing is the consciousness, which works according to a structured system and according to a certain graded order. The consciousness and its state of evolution is therefore the principal factor of the whole, and this would be disturbed in all its functions if it consciously devoted itself to that which is putatively illogical, in regard to its function, capabilities and possibilities, and exposed itself to permanent stimulations, that is to say, fluidal, Feinstoffsinnlich vibrations of foreign spiritual fine sensitive feelings, of thoughts and feelings. The consciousness itself, as well as all its forms, structures and the entire hierarchy, would thereby be weakened. But so that that cannot happen, the brain, in the course of evolution, has developed a system of protection through which it is protected from uncontrollable external stimulations, that is to say from Feinstoff-Sinnlich influences. If this protection system did not exist, then the human being would topple into a bottomless abyss of contradictory information and, as said, succumb to insanity. Finally, dreams which grant admission into that which is Feinstoff-Sinnlich come into play when some information or other from this realm reaches the consciousness. Thereby the human being's dream opens a world which he cannot perceive with his rational intellect, if he does not create the ability to penetrate into the fields of his Feinstoff-Sinnlichkeit and make its faculties consciously and controllably useful. Through the world of dreams, all physical laws, as well as all spatial-temporal laws, are repealed, whereby things can be perceived and understood which remain concealed from the purely rational intellect's perception, at least in the waking state. And the fact is that the firmer the identity of a human being, the more stable is the state of his psyche. Consequently, he separates himself from other states of the psyche and is, in this regard, practically unassailable. However, exactly that is a stipulation, if the Feinstoff-Sinnlich abilities are to be worked on quite deliberately, because a burdening of the psyche would have devastating consequences. Therefore, the consciously developed Feinstoff-Sinnlich abilities stipulate a healthy and strong psyche, and precisely that is non-existent in those human beings who achieve Feinstoff-Sinnlich perception as a result of incisive events, because through their tragically acquired Feinstoff-Sinnlich capabilities they become, as a rule, labile in their thoughts and feelings, and thereby also psychically labile, because they are not able to cope with it all. That, however, leads to the Feinstoff-Sinnlich capabilities such as thought reading and empathy becoming stronger and finally being able to take the upper hand, whereby often schizophrenic effects come about as well as isolation from the societal structure. And yet to say is that, naturally, not all incisive events lead to the affected person having the capacity for perception pertaining to Feinstoff-Sinnlich faculties, because the traumatic experience, or event, does not, itself, establish the essential factor for that, rather it is fundamentally the psyche's condition, which is formed through the consciousness via the world of thoughts and world of feelings. The more stably the state of the psyche has been formed, the less danger exists that a defective faculty of Feinstoff-Sinnlich perception can occur, and, indeed, regardless of whichever kind of traumatic experience or event it may be. Therefore, with the conscious and deliberate learning and utilization of Feinstoff-Sinnlich perception, it is absolutely necessary that the entire world of the consciousness as well as the world of thoughts and feelings, as well as the psyche, are in an immaculate condition, otherwise dangers pertaining to confusion, and so forth, are evoked, which cannot be assessed and cannot be prevented. The End. Translated by Vivian Legge and Dyson Devine. Revision November 2010, by Dyson Devine and Vivian Legge in collaboration with Vibke Walder. References. Feinstoff-Sinnlich, adjective, fine structure sensual, of all relating to the fine structure senses equals of all relating to the senses for fine structure fine energy. Feinstofflich, adjective, fine structured, of all relating to fine structure fine energy. Feinstofflichkeit, noun, fine structuredness, condition or state of being. Fine structured equals condition or state of being of fine structure fine energy. Spiritual fine sensitive feeling, in other words, the spiritual counterpart to the material feeling, corresponds to the German word, Empfindung, which is traditionally translated as a Sinnlich, Wahrnehmung sensation, sensory perception, Gefühl feeling, emotion. Feinstoff, noun, fine structure, that is fine energy. Superfeinstoff-Sinnlich, nominalized adjective, superfine structure sensual, that which is superfine structure sensual equals that which is of all relating to the sense for superfine structure superfine energy.